Okay, so we're going to officially get started here. So I guess we say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. Here in Oregon, it's about 10:30 in the morning, and where our friend Benoit is in Ambonay and Champaign, it's 7:30 in the evening. But if you're watching this broadcast, you know that any hour of the day is fantastic to be tasting champagne, particularly if it's something that Benoit has made. So we're very happy to be able to do this with him today. Just a quick orientation here on this screen that I'm speaking on. I'm Ed, and with me is Laura. Laura manages the operations here at the shop and has been with us for a number of years. We also have with us here in the shop today Patrick. Patrick is involved in pretty much everything we do. Um, there he is. There's Patrick. The shop has been closed to walk-in traffic for about 14 months now, but we are doing orders online. People will come up to the door, telephone calls, and so on. So Patrick will be tasting with us, but he's going to be taking care of that just in case anything happens in that regard. So if you hear the phone ringing, that's what's happening. Also with us today, Alex. Alex is in the white shirt with the dark cover. Hi, Alex. Alex works with us, and he is the developer and designer of our website. He also is involved in many things related to wine, and he's an assistant winemaker at Twill Cellars, a little bit south of us here in Portland in the Willamette Valley. One other person on our team who's not here today is Bethany, and Bethany is a winemaker and has her own winery called The Color Collector. Today happens to be a day that she's out in her vineyard, out in the Columbia Gorge. So if she's getting a strong signal, she may be watching us, I'm not sure, but she's not with us today. And then also on the screen with us is our good friend Simon. Simon is one of the key members of a small but fantastic import company based here in Oregon called Petit Monde. And they import and distribute wines both here in Oregon and in Washington a little bit to our north. Um, Also, Simon is actually from Paris. He was born just outside of Paris, so French much better than ours. And while Benoit's English is terrific, Simon is available just in case we run into any linguistic challenges. And then just one little bit before we get rolling here. The store, I opened the store 22 years ago, and I'm still here. But during that time, one of our great alumni, Stephanie Sprinkle, worked with us for about 10 years. And besides being a great writer, she also has a great passion for champagne. And so during her many visits to Champagne over the years, she met Benoit a number of times. And through that relationship, we were able to establish an importing line directly from his cellar to our state here in Oregon. So of course we're grateful for that. And we started to work with his wines, I believe, in 2015. And we have something like 200 labels of champagne in our store, 12 of which right now I think are from Benoit. So we're really excited to have his wines here. And then the last piece of this is that our friend Brian Martin, Brian works for Mitchell Wine Company, and they are the ones who import Benoit's wines here into Oregon. And Brian and Benoit are old acquaintances, and so both Stephanie and Brian wanted to say hello to you, Benoit. So they send their hellos.
Thank you.
So with that kind of orientation, I'm going to pass it over to Laura. I should tell you, by the way, we are not socially distant, but both of us have had both of our vaccines, so we feel pretty safe about that.
Yes, so we're so excited to be doing this. I think for the format, it's going to be a combination of tasting and asking questions. So we all have prepared some questions for Benoit, and we'll ask them while we're tasting the wine. A few folks have the wines at home and will be tasting along with us, but we're hoping to make it interesting even if you don't. So the first wine that we're going to taste is the Shaman 2017. Um, so this is the entry wine, I suppose you could say, not to diminish anything about the quality. It's a very special wine. But I wanted to ask you, Benoît, to elaborate on the details of this. What's in the blend? What is the vineyard like? Um, and then we can.
Okay, no problem. Hi everyone, I'm very happy to be with you tonight. So actually, what's inside this bottle is my heart. First of all, if I take one of you to do the same than what I'm doing at the same place, the same days, the result will be different because we are all individual and we transfer a lot of our personal energy to what we do. Really, each time you taste a wine, you taste one side of the grower. That's very important. This champagne is called Shaman 17 because it's based on the year 17. That's the dominant one. Let's say about 80%, and then there is 20% of 16 and 15 together. It used to be called tradition, it used to be called réserve, and at some point some people told me, well, it's not you, it's too classic, and you are different, so you should find a different name. And then that was 10 years ago, I decided to name that champagne elements, the 4 elements or the 5 elements, because simply it's something, you know, the air, the earth, the water, the energy, the fire. It's something we work with that is also a representation of every vintage seasons. And unfortunately, 2 years after, a US winery sent its lawyers to us, a California winery, and say, we're using it for a red wine, so you should stop it. And then that was the right time to use Shaman, which was a name I didn't want to use at the beginning because that was quite different from the classic, the conservative of wine people and of Champagne. But really, indeed, it was not a kind of a marketing name. It was really me. And without being pretentious about something in particular, the shaman works with the elements, and I am myself next to biodynamie, next to alternative work, both in the vineyards and in the cellars. I have been meeting shamans from different continents, from the different countries, for 20 years now. And I don't consider myself fully as a shaman, but I really connect with the spirits in the nature. I have this chance. When I was very young, I grew up developing a feeling from the invisible world and so on, lots of things. And I was lucky enough to meet people who accompany me in that way, and also to read many books who did not arrive to me at random, but there was a reason for me to come to these things. And so Shaman is our non-vintage champagne, and actually it's the number 2 now because we have an introduction champagne called Human. And so Human is the first one, which is introducing people to the Marguet line, and Shaman is next. And then it's followed by Cru and single vineyard, single village and single vineyards. We will talk about it. And the final champagne is Sapiens, the wise man, or the supposed to be wise man. So there is a chronology. And back to Shaman in itself, it's always Ambonnet and Bouzy, which are the 2 villages where historically my family has vineyards since 1870. And so that's where I am tonight, in Ambonnet. That's where the estate is based. And those two villages are side by side, only 1 kilometer's distance, so less than a mile, but it's actually between them quite different. And we are so at the south side of the Montagne de Reims, 30 kilometers south of Reims, the capital or the second capital of Champagne after Épernay. So it's a southeast exposure, and it's I let you discover, but it's a wine that that is a new interpretation of my region, of my villages, since our transfer to a different farming, a different concept of respect of the nature. So when I was allowed by the family to farm differently, organically, biodynamically, it was a challenge. That was back in 2008, and I knew the wines, the local wines, how they tasted, the wines of my parents, the wines of my grandpa, but the style has really changed. I was rediscovering my local vineyards quite quickly. The reaction was fast, and it was really something great for me to see that anything we could do on the vineyards really have an impact, was really touching, influencing the energy and the taste of the wine. And so that's a big satisfaction, because at least you know that sometimes even quite not big things can do a lot of changes. So I've been discovering years after year a new picture, a new taste, which was probably a taste closer to the reality, closer to the origin, with less mask, less cream, purer, probably I would say an interpretation of maybe more elegance and of the South Coast. And so this one this year in particular is 69% Pinot Noir, 31% Chardonnay. There is no permanent, there is no, nothing is fixed in advance at the tasting for the blend. Every year I start again from zero. So I don't think myself, last year I've been doing this amount of Pinot Noir, this amount of Chardonnay, I should do the same. It did work well, I should do the same. No, not at all. First of all, if you apply for the same amount of each, you don't get to the same result from one year to another. And then that is really losing part of the magic about it, that is losing the energy of each vintage. The balance, the harmony is what we look for, is what I look for, and it can be very far in terms of blend proportion. It can be very different from one year to another, but as a whole, Shaman White, the dominant Pinot Noir, and Shaman Rosé is a dominant Chardonnay.
Interesting. The name Shaman is a great name for the wine that incorporates the partial reserve from the previous vintage, because you're combining the past and the present of the wine into one cohesive thing. But it's like what you want to accomplish with it is it to represent the vintage that it comes from as well, right?
Yeah, there is a continuity between the years, but the style can be very much influenced by a time, by one harvest to another. What's important, once again, is the balance, the équilibre in French, the energy, the depth, and it's actually quite a complex, spicy wine. It's also very elegant. You have some depth. It's long lasting in the mouth, and it's a wine that I mean, people think that with the family ourselves for the special celebration, we only get the most expensive champagne we produce, but we do. But we also enjoy very much the great classic that is Shaman, the energy of it, and it's a wine that is really living from season, from months. It's also sensible to the climate changes when you have one day where it's cloudy, one day it's cold, and it's full moon or a black moon. It's which is now actually. It's always it's part of the life. So you got to accept that. You can have little differences from a glass to another, like when you are with friends, you are tasting at home or in another house. It can be different, and here it's exactly the shaman is coming to you in different circumstances, and every time you get the harmony, but you can have a different expression depending of also the glass you're having. We're tasting all of us tonight. We have different glasses, so the taste is slightly different due to the glass. And since maybe 4 years now, all the champagne of the house are Brut Nature, and that was a natural continuity for myself. I recall 10 years back, my champagne were maybe 9 grams of sugar for the disgorgement. And then one of them said to me, 7 is enough. And so we went for 7 grams for one of them. And a few months after, all of them were looking for 7 grams. I was not the person who decided. It was the wine pulling me to go lower and lower, and it was very interesting. And one year we moved to 5, and 1 year to 3, and then it was psychologically a decision to take. Is it going to be enjoyed by the people? Are they gonna think it's too sharp, too green? And actually, if you trust yourself, if you trust the nature, you do trials here, and you found out that at some point your mouth gets used to Brut Nature. At some point you get tired of sugar, and at some point you want the natural energy of the origin, not to be transformed, even though sugar is developing taste and also acidity, but it's kind of losing something also. And so now, even for Brut Nature, bottled in July 2018, it's a wine that is totally elegant and superb. We like its precision for a non-vintage.
Great. Well, I believe Simon has a question for you.
Yeah, to go back briefly on the name shaman, I think a lot of times the function of a shaman in societies that had shamans was to kind of bridge a gap between the past and the present and the future, and to kind of work with the synergy of time. And I'm curious if for you, that has an impact in how you think of this particular wine, in particular, how you think of reconciling the past and the future, traditional and ancestral practices that come from the history of your region and your family, and the new ways of interpreting things. And and how those things kind of interplay together.
Okay, we're not going very far for shaman in terms of past. It's a matter of 3 years, 4 years maximum blended together. So that's not very old. I'm not looking for a Solera 10 years old, 15 years old. Not at all, because I want to stick to that precision. But still, my work is a mix between we can say new technology, not really, but it's a mix of we can have new equipment for some things. It's also a work of common sense, simply looking after the natural flow of life, the fluidity, the simplicity. So if we can take a pump to do this to this, we think of developing equipment to avoid the use of a pump. If we can plow the soil with a tractor, we think that the tractor is consuming, it's heavy, sometimes it's damaging the vines. It's not that great. Perhaps we could do a social act by employing someone extra and giving sense by using animals in the vineyards and plowing with horses. And this was a change that happened 10 years ago here, where we developed a horse stable, and it was something. Of course, some people around at the beginning, they were kind of laughing about us, and not anymore at all now. They have a lot of respect for this, and from the beginning, for me, it was back to the future. It was really considering that we behave like we are the only one on the planet. But in my opinion, they are the world, le règne en français, the règne, the world of the mineral, the world of the vegetal, the world of the animal, which we are part of, and they are all, the three of them, connected to each other. They communicate. We are a species of vibration. We are a species giving up energy without knowing, and nature works this way. So it's all interconnected. So it was for me an evidence to look for something more natural, and quite often it was techniques of the past who were the best. Sometimes you can hear people saying, well, in the past they were doing this or that, and quite often you realize that they were right. So we talk about it for a few years, and after we go and do the same what was done in the past. So we go through cycles in terms of work, in terms of techniques. We try something new, it goes into the magazine and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes, quite often, we come back to the original work. So it was not so. It was a challenge. All this transformation that happens here. It was a challenge, human-wise, but for me, it was quite easy, because that was a call I had. I am a physical descendant of my parents, who went to work on a special way because it was they were right with their times. They were doing same as the other people, and I fully respect what they went through, which was not easy. And at some point, I was possibly sent here with different sensibility, and which I really felt when I was young, around 7, 8 years old. I could feel the energies. I could feel a different kind of shamanism the one you possibly know, which is about the ancestors, but it's more about the spirits in the nature, the living side of a tree, the living side of a rock, um, and I kept developing this without questioning myself too much about it. And later on, it touches me even more, and that was evident. And so, we all of us, we are shaman. All of you, you are shaman. You just don't work it. You just don't develop it. But you can access to modified state of consciousness through weed, ayahuasca, but many different things, through hypnose, through meditation, through some wine as well. And in my opinion, wine is giving away energies of the nature to people. Wine is not just an aromatic pleasure with alcohol. Wine is much more than that, and you can touch a lot of treasure, a lot of energy, a lot of magic about the life by tasting wine. If you are really centered and connected, wine has a real power to change people, to touch people. And of course, if you drink too much, that's different. But in terms of creativity, in terms of modifying your perception of many things, it's fantastic. So my purpose, my goal, my natural wish is simply to transfer those energies of the nature, the soil, the sky. Both of us give us the grapes, and my work is really to respect this, not to trouble, to some people would say extreme care. I don't think I am extreme. I am just simply putting myself instead of the grape, or putting myself instead of the wine. How would I like to be with things on myself that are different, synthetic chemicals? How would I like me to sleep in a bedroom, into a stainless steel bedroom? Do I prefer to sleep in a barrel? Things like that. The wine is alive. Everybody says that. But do people really understand what it means? A living thing. When I say that, it means that the wine is able to understand who I am, what I'm saying, my thoughts. If I don't feel good, I'm a human. I can be negative one day. Then I go in the vineyards. I empty myself with the soil. If I don't feel right and I go and work near the barrels, they catch everything from me. So it's interesting. You can do it yourself. You just have a glass. You concentrate yourself, and you are negative. You are feeling negative, and you transfer negativity. And you do a second glass with the same wine, and you concentrate yourself. You don't say, Benoît Marguet said that, we're going to try, it's going to be fun. No, you really think what you're doing, and you send love, and you transfer something totally different, and the two wines don't taste the same. So this is not necessarily shaman, but it's many people know that. Voilà. Did I lost you?
No, that was great.
Wine is generous to us all.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And guess what? My father was very strong with me because he didn't like me to be looking for organic farming. So he was very tough. And one way he pulls me without thinking to go and see outside of the winery. And this is how I ended up to work in a Washington State winery for a year in 95, 96. And sorry?
Winery were you working at?
Oh, it's closed. Well, it was called Staten Hills in Yakima, in Wapato. And then it was called Sagelands when Coppola bought it. And I don't know now. But it was near Covey Run, just north of Covey Run. And it was great experience. Really, it was awesome. It was fantastic. I have learned a lot of things there, and I wish to go back and see you friends in Oregon as well.
We'll look forward to that when the time comes. Oh, you had a question as well that you wanted to ask?
What was that? Sorry, Ed, you broke up. Was that me?
Oh, yeah, no, I was saying you had a question that you were interested in asking.
Yeah, so Benoît, you mentioned in 2008 that you were able to convince your family to let you change the farming, and I'm curious on what were some of the first changes that you've made?
Some of the first changes, right away I stopped chemicals in the vineyards. We farmed organically, and the year after it happened to be the biodynamie. The step by step, I get rid of the tanks and buy more barrels, and stop the use of sulfite in the winemaking, or very little about it, very small amount. I just look for possibles. I mean, things that were less a trauma for the vine or for the wine. I mean, something like you would do for your kids, something which was not always evident in the world of farming, because you have the feeling, some people have the feeling that they are treating something else than something alive. But me, it was really my family, my kid. And I was extremely careful not to rack the wines when it was not necessary. So that means no racking at all, no yeast use, but natural yeast, leading the wines, trusting them. If they do their fermentation, I just listen, I taste, I follow, I smell, that's it. And the wine live his life, and then at some point you decide to bottle. But it's really something. It's not less work; it's more work of observation of time. But it's more a work about a feeling. Sometimes people say you farm this way, you farm this way. I said yes, but above all, it's a viticulture of ressenti, of feeling. It's a viticulture, a farming of intuition. So there is no recipe from one year to another. And there is no recipe in the vineyards or in the blend. Permanent questioning. And this questioning is to myself or with the vines themselves. I put myself in the vineyards and do meditation. I put myself in the winery and do exactly the same. I ask my question. I feel there's something to do or not. Everybody can do the same with a kid, with a baby, and it's exactly the same with the nature. And so the evolution was about both simplicity and surrounding. The evolution was about let things go without losing control. That means you don't want to control things, you want to trust it, but you're surrounding it. So that was some of the evolution, together with growing plants. For example, plants to treat the vineyards. This is osier in French, so I don't know if Simon knows the equivalent of osier. And this is a prêle. We cook, we grow these plants on the estate, we cook them, and we filter them, and then we spray these on the vineyards to accompany the vines in their autoimmune system, in their self-defense. And so this is next to small amounts of copper, sulfur. Both of them have salicylic acid, so that is a vegetal aspirin, if you wish. And it's fantastic. It's great, helping us. And we have different plants that we're using, different things from earth. Lately, we're using a lot of garlic. Okay, milk from a local goat cheese maker, in organic also. And so this is against powdery mildew. So over the years, with different contacts in France, people who have been working on this, on gardens, also in vineyards, we exchange. We say this has worked, this has not worked. And we came to look after what we call the grandma recipes. And step by step, it's simply fascinating, because it's, once again, it's giving a lot of sense to your work. And all my team is so pleased to go and collect these natural things, to do something special for the vineyards. It's big for human to see what they can do. And in 2 days, I'm receiving 20 young growers of Champagne who wants to see how I'm working. And I should not say too loudly, because normally maybe you can only have 10 people at a time in the place. But our the winery is big, so we can welcome 20 people even during COVID. And so it's a pleasure to share this, and I invite you from Oregon to come in and see this. And I'm sure you have people who do the same. Some winemakers will do the same in Oregon. But yeah, these are the changes that happen. And then we develop a new winery also. We built a new winery because I felt that I had to change things with the energy of the past, physically. And I went on alternative construction. What I'm calling alternative construction is based on the influence of the telluric electricity in the soil. So that is called geobiology. That's a little technique. And also the woods, the things we used for the winery was different. So we really have in the winery, you really feel very, very well. Everybody coming says, wow, it's relaxed, it's very nice. We feel very well. And so that's really what I was looking for, a well-being of the people working here, but a well-being of the wine in the barrels, like if it was for us. And so all this attention is given, is an energy that I develop around me, and this is received by the vineyards, this is received locally by the wine, and it's very powerful. It's very powerful.
Simon,
Thank you.
we had a question about, or a translation question that came up, which is, you know, in English what osier is?
I don't remember what osier.
Osier comes from a tree called a saule. A saule, and then you cut the bark. And when you cut the bark of a saule, it's called osier. And people do seeds with it in the past in France. And for us, we will use it after the flower of the vine, so after June. And we will use the prêle, horsetail,
Okay.
for the flower.
Stephanie tuned in the chat and says that osier is willow.
Willow. Hi, Stephanie. Thank you. Willow.
There are some farmers in Oregon who use milk in their vineyards for powdery mildew. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm using petit lait. So petit lait
Is whey.
Whey. Not milk, but I don't know the name. Whey. But you know, everybody is changing. It's fantastic. It's fantastic, and I hope it's gonna be even faster with the new generation. But lots of things, lots of questions comes. Champagne has a big dynamic now. The whole region. Everybody, not everybody, but many people pretend to be organic, which is not always the case. But we can say that there is a big change, transformation. I mean, if 10 years ago I was putting sheep in my vineyards, people would have really took me for a fool. Today, Moët et Chandon puts sheep in a few vineyards of them. So that is fantastic. And no one loves. And the times are changing a lot, and it's really exciting. It's time to change, but at least to see that it starts to happen in the vineyards, that's really great. But we are all, I mean, the farmers are nothing without you. We are all together. We are all to decide of our future life.
Simon has a question.
Yeah, this was a kind of broader question. You're really lucky and fortunate to work with many crus in many villages, from Bouzy to Aille, Crayères, Auger, Verzenay, Ambonnay, Chouilly, Avize, and Cramont. And I was curious how you envision and interpret those differences, and how people that drink wines from those different crus and villages could interpret them in the resulting champagnes. And if you have a general idea of how you think of those things.
I don't know. It was, I mean, how could I say? Sorry, not to be too direct. But we don't have enough for sale, and people don't say to us so much. They say, "Well, it's great," but we don't hear much back here. But it was a real challenge when we started this in 2008. Les Crayères was the first. You could not know where you were going. Applying Burgundy to Champagne was a real challenge. But I must say that I did not do it with some marketing calculation. I did not think behind myself, well, I should do this for that purpose. Or no, it was something that was natural, offering the expression of the origin. Was something normal to me. And I experienced a few times that when you were blending parts together, grape varieties together, sometimes the result was not as exciting as you could expect it. So Why? Simply because you were kind of forcing something to happen which was not required by the substance. And you were, by doing so, you could lose something. You could lose some energy because you imposed a situation. And so, I mean, when I grew up, blending was obvious. To reach complexity, it was necessary to have a bigger aura of wine. But it's because you don't allow a single element to express itself. If you do a great job in the vineyard, if you allow a reasonable time of aging before the bottling, the harmony is really to a maximum with a single individual. There's no need to blend. But still, today, some years, we are bottling 15, 18 champagne, and maybe 12, 14 of them are single cru, single village, single vineyards. And that was a big, big challenge. So some years I slowed down, and some years I did more, and some years like this year, the one we are releasing this year, it's not my fault, but 2016 is going to be extremely small. We will have a few, but very small amount because we had some frost and mildew in 2016. So now that's a problem because people look after it, and there won't be a lot on the market. Hopefully 17, 18, 19 will be better. But once again, never we came with a problem with that. It was something really natural. And my purpose is really to propose the taste of each origin. It's nothing behind. I'm passionate about the terroir, so for me it's a game to propose, and it's I mean, as a young kid, I went to taste in big champagne houses a few times, many times. And each time they offer you to taste 20 villages they were supplying from. Out of maybe 100 they were having grapes from. And it was so interesting to taste each of them, the exposures, the soils, and so on, that I could understand that to their level of production, they were looking for a blend and the construction of a taste of the house. But on my own level, it was just lovely, great to keep them individual.
Shall we move on to the Ambonnet? You taste the next wine, the 2000.
So at the beginning we had Bouzy and Ambonnet, and now we have other cru and lieu-dit. The lieu-dit, the single vineyards are coming from my own vineyards, Ambonnet and Bouzy as well. And talking about other villages like Ailly, Verzenay, Cramant, Chouy, these are grapes I buy from friends, exclusively certified organic or biodynamic. And tonight we're having Ambonnet 2015. And Ambonnet is between two villages, Bouzy and Trépaille, and they are different soils, different exposure. And my work consists in getting a sourcing of different styles and looking for the harmony between sometimes a soil of tuffeau, which is the case for Le Parc vineyard, a very chalky soil, which is the case of Les Crayères, which is even dry with a very specific, even more dry with a very specific acidity in the back, to the opulence of La Grande Ruelle, the spice of it. And once again, the proportion of them can vary from one vintage to another. But as a whole, I'm very, very proud of this Ambonnet 2015. It's extremely pure. I often say it's a water to me, a water from the river. Wine is 80% of water, you know, so I'm not far from that, but it's a water from Ambonnet. It's really a great intensity, superb salinity in the back, with smoke, a little bit of smoke. I'm myself really stunned, I think you say that, by this champagne. When I think of the past, when I think of the evolution of the taste of it, when I think of other Ambonnet champagne that can be totally different, we are on the same village and we can make totally different stuff. And there's nothing added, no reserve wine, no sugar, chaptalization is forbidden. So the amount of sulfite is 20. So maybe we put 1 or 2 grams of sulfite, which is like nothing. And it's a huge risk, a huge challenge for me that I've been taking 10 years ago when I decided to divide by 3, by 10, the amount of sulfite, and one day I decided to stop in 11, 12, 13, 14. And the amount, the challenge it was on the whole winery was huge, huge, huge. And in one way, it opened up some wines, it liberates the wines, it gave up a different energy. And because we were always extremely careful with the press, with the transfer for the bottling, there was no wrong taste going on. It was not possible, and I feel like the nature is kind of participating to the estate today. The nature is calling me and telling me that it was great to risk, to challenge this, and it's I feel the nature thanking me for this.
If you're not able to be tasting along with us, this wine is absolutely beautiful, and if you are tasting, you know that.
Merci.
Now, Benoît, Brian Martin from Mitchell, the importer, was asking to ask you about the situation right now in Champagne in terms of all of the frost that has been sweeping across the region. How is that impacting things so far?
We are not like our friends further south in Jura or Burgundy or in the south. The buds were less developed here this year. Some vineyards have been hit, but rather on top of the hill, which never happens before. So in general, frost is at the bottom of the hill and occasionally goes on top. Last week, the bottom of the hill has hardly nothing, and the top of the hill. So it's strange, but maybe it's 15% damages last week. It's difficult to say because sometimes you have just the outside of the leaf and nothing inside that is burned. and possibly you could have a closed bud into the cotton, as we say, so it's not open, and it could be eaten inside. So we saw both cases, but not dramatically. So we feel very, very lucky. In the Côte des Blancs, it was -3. Here in Ambonnay, it was -3. In the Aube, further south, it was -8. But the buds are less precoce than here, so it seems to be okay. This week we had some rain this weekend, so that's not good at all. Last week it was dry. This week we have rain, and it was -1 on Monday. So we may have a few more buds, but till the end of this week it's tight, yeah. And we can have frost like that till mid-May, so it's still a long time. But it's a disaster in the other wine region of France. In Champagne, we have this system of bloqué reserve, as we call it. So when a year is generous, we allow ourselves to keep some reserve, to pick everything, and this reserve is released when a year is difficult with hail or frost. And that's a security which I guess many other regions are going to seriously think about because it's too much of a problem.
Coming back to the two wines for a minute, one of the people viewing was asking to ask you, how would you characterize in general the difference between the two wines we're tasting today?
Really, Shaman is an explosion of fruit. Really, a bouquet where the spice is diffusing. It's an how could I say? It's really a big cup of fruit, but still with lots of precision, very elegant. Ambonnay can be more austere. It's not necessarily accessible, but it's a wine that is for me more medicinal, with some kind of herbs. It's really, like I said before, it's for me the purity side of Ambonnay. It's really something like a water that has been into the energy in contact of the rocks. Mm-hmm. And beside all, at the end of it, you have a very distinctive salinity, huge precision. So one is more fruit side with spice, blowing, but remaining very elegant, and the other one is in the spirit of Ambonnay, very much. The spirit means, I would say the tram, the smoke side, the salinity of the village. But once again, I have this glass, you have a different one. So try these one day. They are called d'Arsonville, and they are very special. You know, I developed those egg tank for Taranso barrel maker. That was in 2009. You asked about things I've done when I took over the winery. I've studied a lot holy geometry and different things, and I went to contact Seguin-Moreau, Taranso, different barrel maker, and see if they could do a giant barrel, 4,000 liters, with specific measures, including a pentagon and so on inside and so on. And so just to say that the shape of something is influencing a lot more than you think the taste. So it is right for a glass, it is right for a bottle, it is right for a tank. And you have two impacts the physical impact called une onde de forme, so a wave due to the shape, and then the other impact is the energy behind it, because a liquid is never static into something, into a tank, into a bottle. It's moving with atmospheric pressure, with electricity, static electricity, many things. And so the shape offers movements that are different, and so it influences the taste. For our rosé champagne, I do the blend for a Chaman rosé, or Ambonnet rosé also, which is sometimes released. Not this year, next year again. I do use black glasses, so I don't want to see the color. When I do the blend, I have different proportions of red wine in each glasses, and I choose without seeing the color, because otherwise my eyes will tell me, "Ah, this is beautiful. You should like this." And
So shape has an impact, but for you, color doesn't have an impact?
what else has an impact?
Oh, color doesn't have an impact in
Yes, yeah.
just shape and soil.
Oh yeah. No, I thought you've seen the estate walls. Color has an impact, talking of a rosé in winemaking, because if you see the color, you may decide to blend this way, while if you don't see the color, possibly, and usually it's the case, you go for an option that you don't use if you see the color. But basically myself, I'm working with the color a lot. Color is an energy. Colors are energy. So the walls of my house are all colored. So it's quite special for the people in the region where the walls are usually white or stone colored. My walls are blue. And I was allowed to do so because actually before 1850, the whole region was like in Alsace, with green, pink, yellow, blue walls. And even the cathedral of Reims was painted outside and inside in the past to multicolor. So the local officials could not avoid me to do so, because that was something of a tradition. And for me, I'm doing it because I think color is energy. If you are used to wear black, if you change yourself to different color you are not used to, familiar with, you change your behaving, you change your emotion, you change your sensibility, you are a different person. And so this is why, in general, on my champagne, the dressing is done with particular colors, codes.
Yes.
For me, it's color of life. Voilà. And it's quite complex, but it's fantastic. And for example, this is Sapiens. That's the one with. Okay.
Why
so
for this wine? Why the color purple?
Purple is really a spiritual color for me. I'm not into a particular religion, or I am a multi-religion, as you want. But for me, I talked about it a little bit, but we are surrounded with divine. We are surrounded by the beauty, and God is everywhere. And so, in my opinion, we are, if you wish, connected to all that surrounding. And that connection can happen with the upper energetic center called the coronal chakra. And the color representing this chakra is the spiritual color, the purple. So it's really good because it's at the top of the bottle. And in the middle, it's a flower of life. It's a flower of life because this is some kind of a flower people have been using for thousands of years in the pyramids, in the cathedral, and so on. It's really a flower of champagne, simply. Sapience is a blend of three grape varieties, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, 3 growers, different, friends, which I was very lucky to buy grapes from, and I'm still buying from them because that is the spirit of Sapience, to be a blend of friends. When I started it, that was back in 2006. At that time, my family did not want me to farm the family vineyards. The family was scared of me, not of me, but of my wish to farm organically. And so I said, okay, fine, I'm doing my own stuff. And when I could, it was not often easy because there was very, very little organic grapes at that time in Champagne, and still today. But I was lucky enough at some point to get from friends, and this is how Sapience, the first prestige champagne to be certified organic, was created back in 2006. This is 2010. And when my grapes are certified organic from Ambonnet-Bouzy, I join with a little bit of my grapes into this blend. So that is in 12, 13 from the next vintages. Voilà. And so, yeah.
Yeah. We
Yeah,
made
but
So,
a little bit of 2010 as well.
yeah. And so the shape of Sapience is based on holy geometry as well. So it's a special shape for us. And so, of course, if you age the same wine into a bottle like that, or into a bottle like that, the taste will be totally different. Everybody knows that, actually. Everybody's in Champagne has a special prestige cuvée, and at some point, when the bottling is nearly over, he's missing 100 bottles, and maybe he does the 100 bottles in a classic bottle, and he says, we will keep it for the family taste, and a few years after, he compares the two shapes, and they are different. And so, voilà, it's not a question of marketing, it's really a question of harmony between what you feel and what you wish. Voilà. And
Benoît,
Sapience, just one thing, Simon.
no, go ahead.
Sapience is, the meaning is wisdom. We are supposed to be wise people. But sap, you know where it is? In a tree, in a vine. The original sap from the roots to the bud, and the elaborated sap from the bud after the photosynthesis back to the roots. This is kind of a verticality process, which is important for me. Life is about verticality. We are a species of verticality, human being. And so that is the science of the sap also, the science of the verticality. That's it, Simon.
Sorry. No, this is a great segue into my question. As far as being cognizant and as far as being a farmer of grapes, you question every day the relationship that us humans have with nature, but in practice, by working with le végétal, with plants and with ecosystems, and inserting yourself in the interconnectedness of those ecosystems. And I think it's one of the things that I love the most about winemakers and le métier de vigneron. But my question for you is, do you think that there's something that humans can learn at large from having those kinds of relationships with nature and questioning the relationship that we have with nature, faced with the ecological crisis that we're faced with today and going forward?
Can you say again the last part?
La question écologique et le réchauffement climatique et
Ouais.
les problèmes qui vont s'en suivre.
Ouais.
What do you think le métier de vigneron, the craft of a winemaker and of a wine grower, can bring to that question?
Okay. Growers, winemakers have a huge chance is that whatever they do in their work is changing the taste, changing the emotion, and giving something to talk about to people. And the growers, the winemaker, quite quickly see the nature change. Someone who do wheat, a farmer who do wheat, he can move to be organic, biodynamic. There will be a difference, but not as big as for winemaking. And so we are very close to the nature, especially in Champagne, due to the northern area to grow vines. So any evolution, you feel it a lot. This evolution is for everyone in the appellation, in the country, but question people to their past practices, to their future practices. They're talking about having wider distance between the rows of vine. They're talking of changing totally the tractors. It's kind of a big revolution. It happens everywhere for everybody. Did I understand your question?
Very much so.
Yeah. And of course, the taste of the wine can change a little bit over the years if it continues to be like that. But it's the same for everyone. So the impact of what is happening is important. But compared to any other work, winemakers have the ability to transfer some sensibility to customers by adapting more natural winemaking, by showing more about the energy of the wine than it was done before because they were using this or this product. I really think wine communicate a lot to the people about the nature evolution. I behave myself, I feel myself like a passeur. How do you say passeur in English?
A person who transmits.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's not me who transmit, it's the taste of the wine.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see the larger houses starting to work with biodynamic agriculture and even other growers, but I guess specifically with the larger houses, do you think that helps with the message that you hope to send to people? Do you think when this work is done by more people at larger scales, that it has the same impact?
I think the origin of organic biodynamic farming is changing. I think the original idea of it is changed. It is changing step by step. First of all, you have lots of pressures at a European point So they're fighting each other. They want to introduce chemicals into organic farming, which is totally crazy. So we're fighting against that, but we're very small. So it's going to be a challenge in the future because the system, as I call it, wants everybody to farm organically, but not everybody is able to do it. So they're trying to change the laws, and they control everything. They are involved into everything, and it's miserable. So I guess at some point it will evolve in the future, because some people like me who are not extreme but are just very fair with the public, they will look after something maybe called new differently. If we cannot hold with the original concept, if we can call this a concept, but with the original basics of responsible farming, called, in my opinion, organic or biodynamic farming.
And how, if you are a person, an individual who wants to find those champagnes, what do you think? What are the kinds of questions that they need to be asking of the winemakers in order to find the authentic one?
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I did not understand your question, the last one, but I recall the first one. You say, what is it going to be like if everyone becomes like you tomorrow? I'm going to tell to the people who come and visit me in 2 days that it's very important that they do things in trust. It's very important that I'm happy to share, but please, if you go this way, please change your life. Don't do it for sales reason. Don't do it for marketing reason. Do it with your love. Do it with your heart. Otherwise, it's not right. It's not fair. Of course, you cannot avoid this. Many people go this way without being necessarily sensible or sensitive. Sensible? Sensitive.
Yeah.
Sensitive to nature. But at least it's still better than if they were farming with chemicals. But it's like if you are Amish and you have a McDonald who pretend to do Amish farming. It's a big change. So they are powerful, they can do a lot of things, but at some point you have to respect something. The thing is, we don't control everything, and that's a big question between some people like me, between us, about the future of it. And if it's not with this kind, there will be a new future. There will always be something. But we can be the whole Champagne to farm organically. We can be the whole world. It's just a matter of political choices. It's just a matter of how come the world of vineyard, the world of wine, is giving a total trust to the treat of the soil, of the great terroir of grape, to companies that have totally different interest, totally different. They want to create products where they do have a special registration on it to make money. It's not the same philosophy. It's not the same purpose.
So it seems like it's dependent on collaborations between producers. And I think Alex has a question about others who may work similarly to you. So I'll let
Yeah, the question was, Benoît, was there anybody when you mentioned that you came to Washington State to work in the, any other vineyard or winemakers that you have studied with or were influenced by? Do you have anybody that's kind of giving you direction or in your past?
Yeah, as I said, things came to me because I asked for it. If you don't ask, you don't receive. And I was probably naturally opened to receive things. And then step by step, I get people in front of me, books with me. So locally, a few winemakers, someone who was totally different from who I am today. But for example, the chef de cave of Charles Heidsieck, who was a heavy smoker guy, a fantastic man. James d'Arsonville, who does those glasses. Fabrice Verung, another important winemaker here. And when I was in Washington State, I was working with Paul Hobbs. Paul Hobbs was totally different from, is totally different from what I'm doing today, but he was very interesting, very strict, very precise, and he taught me a lot of things, talking of red wine, white vinification as well. And that was one thing among some people among others, but there are also many people like Claude Bourguignon in France, Éric Petiot. These are people working with the soil, with the worms, with the bacteria, studying all kind of things who are very important to me. And I'm not considering myself today to an end. I say every week to my team, together we are teenagers till we are retired, at least. And so we got to behave like babies. We have to breathe like babies. We have to look like babies around us, because every day we learn new things. And when I grew up, we were really in that spirit of fixing things, technology. When something was said, it was kind of said forever, and you could not think differently. And this was kind of difficult for me to understand. And lots of people, lots of scientists are very sure of something. And for me, I always, I never closed something. So, I mean, I went to be trained with in the forest, in the nature, with people called the Druids. Druids are kind of a shaman, Celtic shamans, to the plants, spirits. I came to visualize, to feel, to communicate with plants this way. And I've been traveling abroad with people for that too. I've been reading, for example, Perelandra Garden in Virginia. It's a fantastic book from Mashael Small Wright. She's a lady who was raped, who was a very difficult time in her young days, and one day she was nearly dead. She just grew up a garden, and on a place who was dead, where till now human has not considered the place at all. And the amount of love she's been giving has transformed the place to a beautiful garden called Perelandra. It's in Virginia. And she explained this, how you, the power of your intention, of course, which is very known, but all your soul that you can transfer, and you can really modify a place. And so books like that, different origins, have really been touching me a lot.
Can you repeat the author of Perelandra Garden?
I can write it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Michael, it's Michael Small. One of the book, which has nothing to do with religion again. One of the book is called, I think in English it's called Behaving Conscious of the Divine That's Around Us, something like that.
I have another question for you, if I may, Benoît. When you switched from your family, it sounds like was traditionally farming with a tractor, and then you eventually made the conversion to plowing and doing other farming with a horse. Were there any challenges when you made that switch from the tractor to the horse that you had to overcome?
What means overcome?
Like challenges that you had to face when making that switch from the tractor to the horse? Were there things that were happening in the vineyard that were difficult?
Yeah. Because we were reinventing a new job. So I mean, the techniques behind a horse are totally different than on a tractor. So it's a very special equipment who was not existing anymore. So the réglage, I don't know réglage, Simon.
The tuning.
The tunings, yeah, thank you, are very special. So you take time to do that, and then you don't take a horse out like you would do with a tractor. First, they are athletes, so you take care of them all year long, and then you don't go. I'm gonna go now at 7 o'clock. Come back at 11, and no, they decide. You don't decide, but the power of the length is something different. The horse is totally connected to his work. The horse is aware of what he's doing behind himself. If it's hard, he stops. He doesn't continue. The horse, time stop, and this has no price. This has no. It's huge. It's saying to the land, I'm not into a matter of competition. I'm not into a time matter with you. I'm into an exchange. And it's exactly the same when we do the preparation in biodynamic by hand, when we spray the cow manure, the silice. It's really a time for ourselves with the nature. We don't have mobile on us. We are not looking at the watch. We just have to feel well together. And, horse, for me, of course, the first idea about it, people guess, is that you compact less the soil than with a 5 tons heavy tractor. Yes, right. But that was not the first case for me, the first idea for me. The first idea was really this balance between mineral, vegetal, animal. And then the second one was to say, hey, I'm going to employ someone else. I'm going to have someone extra, which is unemployed, working for me. And I never questioned myself, how is it going to be like in my accounting balance? I always think myself, I think it's fair. It's fair for the nature, it's fair for the human, and if I'm aligned myself with it, well, the nature will be fair with me. And it's, I mean, it's really challenging at the beginning because it's a huge cost, it's big investment, it's a totally different impact on the work team. But the overcome hasn't been easy at the beginning because you got to find someone from the vineyard to go on a horse, or you get to find someone coming from the horse to go in the vineyards. I farmed 10 hectares. I could not be myself all the time with a horse. So I have a colleague who specialized into it. And it took a few years really to have the right person. And now it's great. It's absolutely great. But I must say, it's not only for the horse. The whole team is really specialized here, because the way we do the way we work in the winery with the plants, it's quite special. So everybody has his own. Yeah.
Merci, Benoît. That was I love that answer. That trying to imagine the horse just being like, "Oh, I'm done for the day. I'm tired. I'm tucking in." Right.
Yeah.
Well, Benoît, as the night has descended in your place, you are taking on this very otherworldly, your facial expressions and so on in this light are quite amazing. I wanted to ask you just sort of, I guess, in concluding this wonderful broadcast with you, is there anything that you haven't had a chance to speak about that you might want to say, or any message that you might have for people who are tuning in or who might watch this later?
Okay. I can see 4 people on my screen, plus me. 4 people, 5 people. You are all totally different. So please enjoy what people consider weak vintages, and don't call them weak vintages or whatever else. Just love the beauty of a difficult year given to us, because till at the end of it, it's a gift of nature. So when I see some people buying only this vintage because it was given to be a cold, great vintage, forget this and appreciate the beauty in every season, in every year. That's it.
Yeah, that's great.
Truly.
Any other comments from any of our other screen attendees?
See if we got a question may have come in on the Q&A.
2015 AI from Candace. 2015 AI. Very small wine, grapes from a grower called Philippe Lancelot. Only 2 barrels, probably the first organic AI and biodynamic AI ever. And not always easy on the winemaking, often going for reduction. So usually people do rackings when you have reduction. And I don't do rackings because I consider it's too much for the wine. But I remember spending a lot of time with this wine in barrels, just to being around, talking to it. It's something special, but you can imagine having a baby in your arms and how you are behaving yourself with a baby in your arms. Well, it's exactly the same with 2 barrels. You can do a free hug. You can really touch them with a maximum of love. And what happens is that you communicate with the water. You are made of water. The wine is made of water. So both waters hook together. And this is how the energy is passing. And I had to work a lot with the AI, and it's a fantastic wine. I must say I did not taste it for a while because it was something like 600 bottles for the world. So last time I had it was maybe November a year ago, last year. I have 3 bottles left in my cellars for my own. But it's huge personality, huge precision. I could be big, could be rounded, could be heavy in champagne, and this one is really great and elegant. So enjoy. Cheers.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate this, and we hope that the COVID situation changes soon, and we will both be able to see you here, and we can see you there when the time allows for us. But we really appreciate it.
Okay, merci.